up to speed, up to speed, up to speed.
Live from the apocalypse, R.I.P. Takeoff. This is State of the Game. And I am your host, Dano, old enough to have been raised in a world I was pretty sure wasn't going to get better. So here, and my co-hosts who watched Baby Boy and decided this is my idol. And is really the frames.
One at the end, yeah. The
area.
Baby Boy at the end, yes.
Yep. So he's here, and K Diggy, thank you for being here. I'm excited for this topic. This has kind of been brewing because there's been a lot of really high level, super personal albums, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very much connected to my issues, right? Like, because
issues with the super personal albums.
As a writer,
not your.
No, not my. I don't have lots of issues. I'm just a guy, but I'm just here, you know. But he's. You've read my writing. Mm-hmm. My writing is very dense, and my fiction. It's very dense, and it's very, very emotional, and there's a lot of personal aspects to it. And I remember presenting it to people I believed in, people I thought were very smart. And what they would say to me back was, ooh, that was a lot, you know? Like, ooh, you know, that was tough stuff, you know? It was basically that they were trying to find a way to say, whether or not this is great, I don't have a place for this in my life. Like, I don't know what you expect me to buy this book, come home from a hard day at work, and jump into a Steinbeck universe of sadness. Why would I do that? You know? So, and I was like, oh shit. Like, I was so caught up in making it right that I hadn't thought about the audience at all. You know?
Now, when you say making it right, what do you mean? How is making it right to you? How would you define that?
Just the height of the craft, right? The characters, the story, the symbolism, the depth. I wanted it as good as I could get it.
Right.
You know, as meaningful as I could get it. You know, as emotional as I could get it. And I hadn't even thought about the fact that, like, where does this fit in your reader's life?
So, but I think that calls into the point. What are you creating the work for?
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, and you have a relationship with your audience if you're going to have an audience.
Okay.
People that discount their audience completely, I don't. I mean, they tend to plateau, right? I mean, they don't tend to be based on that.
I agree with that.
You know, you think about, like, all the legendary people that you admire in music. I don't think they're people that, like, flip the bird at their audience.
Right. You're right. You're right. But I would say flipping the bird is like an intentional act. I think flipping the bird for like an ultra personal piece of work would be like, yo, I'm going to make this so difficult to understand. I don't even want this to be digestible.
That's a great point. That's a great point, and thank you for that. Yeah, to replace that, I would say you won't find a lot of those guys who haven't even thought about their audience, right?
Right.
Who are just like, oh, you know, I guess, you know, if you go up to J. Cole and he's like, oh, I guess these people do connect to it. I guess, you know, like, J. Cole knows.
Right.
You know? And so you have to think through that relationship and the ramifications of it. That doesn't mean you have to cater to your audience. That doesn't mean you have to do everything they say. You're still the leader. You lead the right, but you have to lead them where you want them to be.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's and you have to lead yourself where you want to be at the same time. So it's
Right.
the other thing about the ultra personal album is that it's incredibly hard to criticize. Incredibly hard.
Criticize from who? From whose perspective?
From someone who writes about music, right? Or discusses music. It's very hard to critique an ultra personal album because you run the real risk of flippantly disrespecting what someone has done, what someone has worked really hard and poured their heart into.
Yeah, because it can come off as you're disrespecting the story, the content.
And in reality, the music critic who's writing about this really personal album isn't going through that shit necessarily, right? So if I'm just having a normal day, you know, and I'm dismissive of this ultra personal album, it can come off really shitty in a public sphere.
Very insensitive, right?
And when in fact I'm just moving through my day, right? Like, and I, and so it's very hard because on one end you're sitting there and you're thinking, I admire this person for bearing their soul, for putting it out there, but did they achieve what they wanted to achieve, right? Was the mission a success? And if the mission wasn't a success, we have to get to that. We have to discuss that. While we honor your journey, you know? It's tough. So that's part of that. The other thing is, I was thinking about kinds of albums, right? What is an ultra personal album, right? I was thinking about the different kinds of albums because I was thinking about Luca last week. It was an incredible episode. Really loved it. Luca, I consider what Luca does smart ass street music.
You said smart ass street music?
Smart street music. Let's drop the ass.
Okay.
Smart street music. Now, smart and political are not the same thing, right? Raw Expressions is a smart street album. Kendrick's new album, I'm not gonna say the whole name. I got things to do. But that's a political album to me. That's a political album because it's not. I'm not saying that Kendrick's not smart. I'm not saying that album is dumb. Smart it's about the mission, right? Luca's mission was to impact every second of that album with like highly intelligent language, right? Thought processes, right? Dissection. Even when he was bragging, it was on this intellectual level, right? But he was still, taking people down when they were fucking with him. So that's what I was saying. Kendrick's album to me was a political album. Well, go ahead.
You have the categories that you want to compare it, the ultra personal album to would be so you have one category of like a street smart.
Yep.
And then one category of political. And so those are like the spectrum for you.
And it's kind of like, putting together a sandwich, right? You can mix and match topics, right? There are albums that are not street albums, they're just smart, right? There are albums that are street albums, but the street is the focus. Not that it's not smart, but the street is the focus. So
Okay.
yeah, you can mix and match, right? So, but in my opinion, Kendrick's new album was a political album because it was very focused on cancel culture and, all this, all these topics that are a part of the political zeitgeist right now.
See, now I would argue that, and maybe this is kind of why his latest album hasn't taken over the world like Damn did. Because
Right.
I would argue that it's not a political album. I would say like the second half of the album is very ultra personal. So maybe, as in, Mother I Sober, like that whole second half of, so I think the first one is the big first part. The first album is Mr. Morale, and then the second one is the Side Steppers, or
High Steppers, or isn't there? Yeah.
something Steppers, High
Right.
Steppers, High
Yep.
Steppers. So I would say that, I mean, the early part of Mr. Morale, like the first album, is political, and then it starts veering more into personal.
And yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the reason it didn't take over the world. Maybe
Right.
that's the important thing. It wasn't anything as a cohesive package, right?
Right.
It wasn't purely political. It was recreationally political. It wasn't purely personal. It was recreationally personal. It was kind of a mixed bag.
Right.
People didn't connect to as well.
In terms of intentions of the song, yes.
And I don't look some of those songs, like I just put it out there, like I don't think We Cry Together is breaking new ground. You know what I mean? Like that's lots of people argue. I don't think that was done in an interesting way. But and these albums that we're going to talk about today, right?
Mhm.
They dug to a deeper level of personal than I knew before, right? They did it. They organized it in a new way. They spoke about things in a new way that I thought was genuinely. It only happens when you dig deep into what you want to do. You don't mix everything together. You dig deep into what you want to do, and you get to the other side of it.
Now, do you have a distinction? Do you believe that there's like personal albums? Because when you say ultra personal,
Yeah,
that's implying that there's like a personal album.
yeah. I think there's room for that. I think there's room for with the ultra personal album is a level of intensity that is overwhelming and overpowering, right?
Okay.
But you have like Eminem releases personal albums, right?
Okay.
Where he talks about his family here or there between jokes, like the concentrate is so serious on an ultra personal album that it's overwhelming.
Oh, okay. I see. So it'd be like if we had like concentrate lemonade, it'd be like drinking that like straight up, as opposed to mixing it with water or
Let's
something.
go with our lemonade scale, right? Where like we've got New England lemonade, which is watery, you know what I mean? And then we've got Southern lemonade. Southern lemonade change your face. Like so there's that intensity level. So I wanted to throw it up for the albums because I think they really do kick it to another level.
Yeah.
And I think there's types of ultra personal albums that are represented here that are really interesting. And like I said, I'm not creating genres, I'm not creating subgenres. I'm just telling you the types of music that that I hear. I don't want the record store organized in like a smart section, political section. No. This is just a way for me to think about it, right? So what would you like to talk about first? Let's do that.
So let's introduce the three albums.
The three albums. Short
Yeah.
Fuse, the Painkiller Boutique, Teddy Faley, Teddy Brown Brown, Mavi, Laughing So Hard It Hurts.
Let's start with let's see, which one do I like? Let's start with the Painkiller Boutique. I think that would be a great one to start with.
Short Fuse is such a good dude. Great follow on Twitter and a talented lyricist. I mean, were there any moments on this album? Were there any moments on this album where you were like, I do not hear people talk about this very often?
I mean, I wouldn't say that this type of music is like my cup of tea.
I'm with you.
So I wouldn't know what to compare it to. I mean, I guess maybe like I thought the opener, Drowning in My Own Skin, was really from the gate.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily, you know what it is? It's like there's nothing new that he's rapping about that I haven't heard about. What I would say is there is like a level of sincerity that he about the topic that's kind of, I guess you could say, refreshing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, well, to your point with Drowning in My Own Skin, not many albums start with the MC being born. Right? Just like born premature, cerebral palsy,
Right.
heritage issues with people, like
Mixed, yeah.
all of this discussed, not feeling Latino enough, just all of this. I mean, that's a punch in the face for a first song.
And 2 minutes, yeah. I mean, he covers a lot of things in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
At the start of the album, like he's not easing you into it. He's like, let's go now.
And the Painkiller Boutique, in my mind, represents one kind of ultra personal album, which is the trauma album, right? You're going to, as an artist, be presented with traumatic events, traumatic times in your life. And if you're good at what you do, once you've gotten to a place where you can do it, you're going to be able to paint that picture more vividly than other people can.
Of the trauma, of the traumatic experience?
Of the trauma. And
okay.
So you have the ability to articulate something that maybe other people don't, and give people a voice, and give yourself, while giving yourself catharsis, right? So that's very good. I will tell you my pick for the one where I was like, wow. Number 8, The Chronic Pain.
Okay. The Chronic Pains in parentheses. Yeah.
I had never heard a rap song dedicated to chronic pain in a very serious way. I was like, wow, that is the heart of this album. Like, Short Fuse is going to deliberately like lay out the chronic pain, wishing he had an exoskeleton, wishing he was robotic, and all this. And I was just like, damn, it's a fearless level of dedication to what the Painkiller Boutique is supposed to be.
Yeah. And what did you, like, as a listener, what did you take away from that track? Like, do you have, I don't know if you have chronic pain or something. Do you have chronic? Yeah, so as a listener without chronic pain, what did you take away from the track?
This is the old story, right? Where like what people say is that reading fiction all the time helps you expand your emotional self, right? I don't know how true this is. I'm just, this is what people say that like, when you, I don't have chronic pain. I listen to him discuss chronic pain, and it helps me be more emotionally attuned to my wife who has chronic pain. Because otherwise, I'm not.
Right.
The bird from the other side of the room. She's a great lady. So yeah, no, it helps me like really understand from their perspective what's going on. That's what's special about art, right? And you if they're really good at transporting you, they can transport you where you never go, and they can help you understand stuff you never will see or
Right. Right.
so yeah, that's
And I think it goes back to what you were saying, you know, at the beginning, uh, regarding the intention and the relationship with the audience. Like, so I'm making a song about this chronic pain. Who is this song for? Like, is this song for me to, get this off of my chest,
right.
try to understand it through my art, or is this for someone who isn't in chronic pain?
Yeah, I mean, and I there is a part of me that thinks, and this is just my light critique of the album, that I don't know how much Short Fuse thought about the audience.
Right.
Um, I I think you can hear in the other two albums that we're going to discuss that they are thinking about the audience. There are specific signs.
Right.
And so there's a line, maybe it's in Magnifique with Uncommon NASA, where he says something like, you know, Jesus died so white supremacists could wear his pelt. And I was just like, that's fucking incredible. But he says it in a very laissez-faire way, right? Like his tone is like in the middle of depression, monotone, the whole album, right? And so he says that line just like he says all the other lines, and I was like, oh, I need you to hit that line, you know? I need you to like your writing's too good. You gotta hit this. You gotta stamp down on these.
Yeah.
You gotta change how you're delivering. You know, that's one of the things that I identified. The other thing is I'm not sure that this is a coherent mix of production.
Yes, I'd agree with you. Like, I looked at it under Apple Music, and it's called alternative hip hop is the category it's under. I did think for someone who's not like a Short Fuse fan,
Right.
or I should say not necessarily not a fan, but someone who's being introduced to Short Fuse for the first time, this would be a hard album production wise and audioly to digest.
Yeah, I mean, so this comes out on Uncommon Records, which is Uncommon NASA's record label. Uncommon NASA is a real important figure in this scene, right? Like, remember when we did Def Jux and we talked about the legacy of Def Jux? Uncommon NASA was there mixing and mastering that stuff, engineering, whatever.
Right.
So Uncommon NASA, I say this to say Uncommon NASA has a deep, abiding, like, affection for jagged sounds. Right? There's no pretty sounds in Uncommon NASA music. Doesn't happen. So this album fits that. but man, there's some beats on here that kind of represent a different album in a way. Like, there's a few albums going on. It's kind of weird from a standpoint, right? Because Messiah Music does 2 songs on here, 6 and 13, right? Detention is my favorite beat that he lends to this. Number 6. Number 13 is maybe my favorite. It's maybe my favorite or second favorite because Def C is amazing. Guest appearance, Colossal Structure. I love Colossal Structure. But those songs bump to a fair extent, right? Like they're like moving. And then Blood Money Perez does 5 and 10. No Home and Comfort Food, which are off kilter, sorrowful, kind of cool. And then Dr. Keel does 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, and 14.
Right.
So nine songs?
2, 4. Yeah, 9 songs.
So, and the beats are kind of all over the place from Dr. Keel, to me. So he does This Is For My Brother, which is a really kind of beautiful song. And is kind of more laid back confessional, right? But Han's solo Fur Coats, that shit bangs.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see how much coordination there was between all of the producers, because if you're going to have multiple producers on an album, I don't necessarily think maybe you do need an executive producer, like particularly if you're going to do an ultra personal album where it's got to be coherent, in my opinion, for the message to be able to be communicated effectively. You need someone there kind of pulling all of the elements together.
Yep.
So I don't know, maybe he reached out to people and was like, oh, I really like his beats and I like his beats, I want to put this song on. But I don't think there was like an overarching, like, okay, does this fit into the grand scheme of, I mean, yes, content-wise and lyrically it may fit, but audioly and sonically, does this fit into the grand scheme of what we're trying to do here?
Yeah, well, so here's how I would put it, because I think there's a lot of debates. Should you do one producer or should you do a bunch of producers? There is no singular right answer, obviously. But what I will say regarding the topic is the more producers you introduce, the more risk you introduce. Right? If I never go on airplane flights, I don't run much risk of dying in an airplane. If I'm a traveling business person, I naturally take on more risk, right? It's the same deal. You know, if you have 2 producers and you pick the right beats, that's fine. When you start 3, 4, that's when you get moving parts happen, right?
And it's not like just one-offs either. It's he had multiple producers producing multiple tracks. So like, Dr. Kill had 9 tracks on it. Blood Money Perez had 2. Messiah Music had 2. Uncommon Nasa had 1. Turntables on track 14. Okay, I'm just reading so it's the fact that you had 4 producers on it. One of the producers did 9 of them. 2 of the producers did 2 each.
Right. So I'm sitting here thinking, because when track 6 starts, I'm like, oh, that's Messiah Music. Like, I knew it was Messiah Music. So
Right.
I was like, oh shit, what would this album be like if it was all Messiah music?
Mm.
You know? And now that's in my head, right? And then we're on Blood Money, and I'm like, oh shit, Blood Money. And the songs are not really together in that sense, right? Like
Right.
they're broken up, right? So the Dr. Kill stuff is running throughout, and those songs
Right.
are, it just doesn't feel as cohesive as it could have been in terms of the sonic choices and in terms of like just varying your tone. Like that's one of the reasons I loved Colossal Structure so much on 13 was that he was electric, right? He was on, and I needed that after a while.
11, 12.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fucking internet going weird.
So
Okay, sorry. Internet went weird.
you know, it's just difficult with, particularly like if you're gonna have one person handle the bulk of the production.
Yeah,
You should ideal in my mind, and maybe I'm just, this is just my opinion, like the guest producer should be one-off. It should be like one-off types of things, and then back to the production. It's not one-off and then and a couple tracks later we go back to that producer, because it just throws off the feel of the album, in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, so there's I don't know. There's a lot. There's different ways to do it, and I think there's other ways. If you look at these other two albums, you can see how they did it in interesting ways, right? That I really enjoy. But like Dr. Keel, so and Dr. Keel is very interesting on this, very interesting production on this, and there would be I would have preferred a full album with Dr. Keel. Nothing wrong with side music, nothing wrong with Blood Money Perez, but you know, this is a very personal album. I
Yeah.
kind of wanted it to be cohesive.
Yeah, and it's got to be because, you know, with the personal albums, we have to, you know, once you're out of, you know, it's like what's that form of comedy?
Right.
Improv comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're doing improv comedy, once the spell is broken, it's very difficult to get back into it.
So what's your best run of songs on this album?
I mean, I thought the beginning was strong. I thought 1 through 4 were strong. And, you know, like 1, 3, and 4 were all handled by Dr. Kill. So I think once you had that continuity in the production, it was just a little bit stronger.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. I was just about to say 1 to 3 or whatever. That those are perfectly organized songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go from Drowning in My Own Skin to Hell's Mosh Pit to Graduation Day. It's beautiful, right?
Right.
The songs from there, you know, maybe like you said, 4 is good. 5 is when you start going, this isn't like the first 4, right?
Right. 5
and-
was Blood Money Perez.
Right. And by the way, Blood Money did great work, great producer. It's just so like you said, somebody's got to patch this thing together. Yeah,
Right.
you know. And it is this is one of the hard things to do if you are going in and discussing music is an album that's good but could have been great. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
This could have been an album that I fight for everyone, that I tell everyone about, that I never shut up about, right? It could have been. It's a few steps from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to celebrate how good Short Fuse is, and the crazy stuff he's able to say on this that is
Right.
just so amazing. But I also want to highlight where this could have gone to the next level.
Right. And I think it's important for an ultra personal album. When you're talking about it, I'm talking about it more from a structurally conceptual standpoint, as opposed to what he's actually rapping about. So I'm looking at it technically, like if I were looking at this, as if this album were not a personal album, ultra personal album, as if he were just talking about, I don't know, like just regular everyday things. So for me, like the album has to stand up even outside of the message, structurally outside of the message. So no matter what the lyrical content is, for an ultra personal album to be good, or any album in general, I guess you could say, it's got to stand up to critique in terms of technical excellence, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, there's talent and then there's organization, right? And so that's a different category. So I wanted to give that album love, but I wanted to give a fair spread of it.
Right.
I managed that. Where do we want? You know what? Let's go to Mavi next.
Yeah.
Mavi is a bit of a conundrum for me. It's like I really respect Mavi. I really enjoy hearing Mavi rap, and this album is better to me every time I listen to it. At first, my first reaction was like, this is some Dreamville shit. This is like him trying to do a Dreamville thing, you know?
See now, I love Mavi's. Of the three, I love the Mavi's album the best.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really like it a lot too. Yeah.
And I think it kind of ties back to what I was saying regarding Painkiller Boutique. You can enjoy this without necessarily knowing the content. I can still enjoy the songs, and that's so. Yes, it's an ultra personal album. He's talking about personal things, but at the end of the day, I still enjoy the songs for how they are structured and how they're made.
So I'm going to make the argument that there's a reason why you were able to enjoy the songs more, right?
Okay.
Beyond the choices that are, the game planning at a high level on that album. Mavi laughed so hard it hurt. That's the album, right?
Right.
It's not a trauma album, right? Laughing so hard it hurts. That is a rumination album, right? That is someone exploring all the facets of their life, right? So while Short Fuse is talking about chronic pain and about illness and about Short Fuse has a thing there where he's talking about how he used to just destroy parking meters for change to get to buy stuff. It's just different. There isn't a lot of happy moments on the Painkiller Boutique. Whereas when Mavi is ruminating on life, there's relationships, there's family gatherings.
Yes.
There's loss, but there's love, right? There's sunshine. It's a full experience of meditation kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that brings up another good point, and maybe another one of the issues. Like, there can still be some light in the darkness. So yes, I think you can go through, and I want to be careful because I'm not discrediting what he went through. Right. I'm saying I think you can find light, and you can find different angles and to talk about in the darkness. You know what I mean? And I
Well,
think that makes for a more interesting listen.
yeah, I think what and this is one of the issues I think that sometimes creeps in with uncommon records is that dedication to visceral, jagged sounds, right?
Mhm.
They also have a dedication to visceral, jagged verses and lyrics. So that I mean, that's peanut butter on peanut butter, right? That's a lot for your mouth to handle. So
Right.
Mavi makes really interesting choices here, and I'm going to say right now because Mavi could have easily fallen into giving us a cutesy piano based production thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know the sound of the thoughtful album, right? The piano twinkles, they tell you about their life. Mavi could kill that every time. But
Right.
track 3, Baking Soda, that beat is insane.
Yeah.
And Mavi from then on, you're like, oh shit, Mavi's gonna rap over beats that slow down and speed up and bunch up and spread out, and like it's gonna switch, you know. It's not, and his tone is gonna fit them, right?
Right.
He, like which was the song? Um, he did a fast song on. I feel like it was one of the short songs.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at. Let me.
It was near the end.
Okay.
Going down. Oh, Inconvenient Truth? No, Opportunity Kids.
Okay. 13. Track 13.
Where like he's rapping fast on that.
Oh, right.
You know, he's rapping fast, and like it's not like he's switching it up, and now it's like a I can rap fast about nothing song. It's still very personal. The lyrics still mean a lot to him,
Right.
but it's it's different. And the song before it is very kind of R&B-ish, Trip,
Trip.
right?
Yes.
Very cool, hooky R&B-ish kind of song, and then boom, the fast rap, right? Like
Right.
use your juxtaposition, right? Juxtapose your sounds so that you keep people on their toes. Mavi did a
Yeah.
pretty good job of that on this album.
Yeah, and I like that the production was all over the place as well. You know what I mean? It's hard to pull up credits, but I'm looking at it,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at, there's like over 7 producers.
Yeah, Wolf Morpheus did a lot of the first 2 beats,
Oh, okay.
and
Are you
and Dil Vinci does a bunch of stuff.
right?
Oh man. But the beats he picked are very good. Very,
Yes,
very good.
the production. Yes, and I think it's enough to keeps you engaged.
Yep.
Uh, it's really, and I know that kind of critiqued the last album about having multiple producers, but you're right. I think it really comes down to structure and really trying to structure the album to really communicate your message in the best way. I should say your ultra personal album in the best way.
Yeah, and I think Mavi did a good job with the details, right? This cover is one of the best covers of the year.
Oh, for sure. I loved it.
Laughing So Hard It Hurts by Mavi. Look up the cover. It's beautiful, right? You want to give your fans a cover that they can that if you give them a cover that's that good with an album that's that good, it's gonna be something that sticks with them for a long.
Really emotional. Yeah, the cover really emotionally resonates.
And it really connects to the album. And
Yes.
years from now, when people are remembering this album, they're going to see that cover and they're going to smile, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a you know, so the cover is very good. The sounds are very clean. Even when they're messed up, they're clean.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And is there any? Oh, who are the guests on this? Are there guests?
Except on track 12, Amindi.
Yeah.
That's the only guest on it.
Wow. Oh, another thing I want to commend him with. This is 16 tracks. If I said 16 tracks, you might go, oh no. It's 38 minutes.
Yes.
16 tracks, 38 minutes.
Moves very, very well.
And I'll tell you, my favorite song on this album is like 52 seconds long.
What do you Known Unknowns?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that comes right before Trip and Opportunity Kids. Yeah, I thought the end, it was a very strong, and I thought the ending.
It's a great beginning and a great ending, right? The beginning.
Yes, yeah.
Always knew I wanted to fuck you in school, just ain't know how or when, but now I do. Cuts, bruises, subtle improvement throughout this shit. I honor you. And then at the end, right? Ain't know that I would see you again. Turned hard on the route. She told me I was just mean to you because I thought you cute. So it's a really beautiful vignette of a story where like Mavi's music is able to communicate with other characters in the world. It's not just him explaining what happened.
Right.
There are scenes, right? There are scenes, there are characters, there's interactions, right? And it builds a story.
And maybe like an ultra personal album. Maybe an ultra personal album doesn't need to be nonfiction. There can be fiction in an ultra personal album,
and vice versa, right? Like, one of the most personal movies Alfred Hitchcock ever made was Vertigo.
Mm-hmm.
It was about a lot of hard shit that was happening, and like it's a beautiful movie, and nobody who watched it knew it was personal,
right,
or thought about it, like, because it's still a really good ass movie, you know.
You can enjoy the album outside of the message,
right.
And I think like I won't say the name of it, but there was an album in particular this year that I thought really, like, the marketing of it really relied too much on the message.
Yeah.
And so the message was there, but to me, at the end of the day, like, in terms of the craft, it wasn't innovative or up to par.
Right.
So for me, like an ultra personal album, you've got to have both, where the art stands and is recognized outside of the message.
And it's hard to do that work because it's so close to you, right? The stuff is so close to you. Once you've done it, it's exhausting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So going the rest of the way and organizing, it's hard because you've got to go over these songs 1,000 times that represent really tough times in your life. So there's a lot of ways albums can go wrong. There's even more ways ultra personal albums can go wrong.
Yeah.
But
it's a high wire act, because when an ultra personal album goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong.
Right.
And will become unlistenable. Like
Yep.
I will like, if it's so bad, a person will never go back to it.
Right, but so it's high stakes. Ultra personal albums
High
are high
stakes, yes.
because if you hit the right way, you've got a connection with your audience that they'll never break.
Right.
Because they've been somewhere no one else took.
Right.
So that's the key. And I think the Mavi album is good. I wonder how it fits in this kind of greater album of the year discussion next to all these massive albums, you know? Because there's a lot of great depth and rumination. But man, Smino is so fun to listen to.
Mm.
You know? Like, I don't know. It's hard to place it in the marketplace like that, but maybe I should.
And he's so young. It's I think he's only 23 as well. It's really
Impressive.
It's really difficult for a 23-year-old to make, and it's nothing against him. It's just difficult for a 23-year-old to make like the album of the year candidate, in my opinion.
That makes sense. But it is a candidate. It is that good, right? In terms,
it's a strong message. Yeah, I think it's
lyrics, in terms of the way the lyrics are, in terms of his singing,
right.
Of just the cohesion of it, and how most of those 38 minutes are just him. It's pretty fucking impressive. And
it's a strong message. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a strongly cohesive album for sure. But I think he can get better. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't even close to his best effort, I think. And it's kind of, it's like, with some NBA players, you look at them and you're like, yes, they're good. I'm thinking young NBA players. You look at them, yes, they're good, but you're comparing them to what they could be and what you think they could be.
Yeah, or like, you remember back in the day when people thought Drummond was the man.
Right.
And you're like, no, Drummond is Drummond. Like, he is that, right? Like, that's the ceiling. He's at the ceiling. And Mavi, the ceiling feels, up there for him.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know where it fits, but it's really good and it's really well done.
Yes,
and that counts for something. If somebody walked up to me and was like, "Top 5 album of the year," I wouldn't be mad. You know what I mean? I'd be like, "I see you with that."
And I think there is a difference between a favorite album of the year and then a top album of the year. I could certainly see this being like a favorite.
Man, I with you, man. Now we're gonna get to my favorite.
Okay.
Teddy Faley, Teddy Brown. What a fucking album! I've written about this before, man. It's funny. I just wanted you to hear it.
What is it about it that really resonated with you?
So, full disclosure, Teddy sent me this album and was like, "You should check this out." And I checked it out, and I was not into it. Very not into it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I mentioned it. I was like, I can't do another super emotional white rapper album. I can't do it, but other people were repping it hard and other people I respected. So I went back to it. And when I went back to it, I was like, holy fuck. Like, just, crazy shit. And like, it was like, they ask how I'm doing. I say, great. My friend is dead and I'm wearing his Timbs.
Yeah.
What? Like, he was just.
You see, even that line, like that's kind of what I mean about, multiple perspectives or attacking something from certain perspectives. Yes, he's talking about his friend dying, but he's using sarcasm and humor in the same line, like the same, lyric. So there's like different colors in that lyric that he's
Right.
painting with.
And the thing with Teddy's, like, Teddy clearly loves old school hip hop, right? There's a lot of kind of classic feeling beats to these things.
Mm-hmm.
What Teddy does that I really enjoy is he uses a really classic, almost Run DMC sense of accentuation for his tone and for what he's saying. That really makes it's exactly what I was talking about with Short Fuse and wanting Short Fuse to do, right. If I was gonna point, if Short Fuse was here and wasn't mad at me, I would say listen to Indistinct Chatter. Listen to Indistinct Chatter number 9. There's a whole part of that song where Teddy is pulled aside by a cop, right? And the cop is like, "What are you doing out at this type of night? Why are you out walking at this time of night?" And he's like, "I wanted to go for a walk." How many reasons can you have for going for a walk? And he just goes, and that's not even how crazy he goes with it. You can feel how pissed he is, and then he goes into all these crazy, delineations of like, I'm a super terrorist machine gun. Like he just spins out, right?
Mm-hmm.
His tone leads you to that, right? It leads you through that breakdown and spinning out.
Right.
There's an accentuation in this that is beautiful. The cigarette song. You remember the cigarette song?
Ooh, wait, let me see. A song about cigarettes, but it's about my dead mom too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm not laughing at the dead mom. I'm laughing at like you can pick something very personal, but at the same time approach it from different angles.
I want that to be a T-shirt for us, and it just says, "I'm not laughing at the dead mom" in quotes.
With yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think I think it's the right perspective. Like life is hard, so you have to find different angles to approach, and particularly artistically, you have to find different angles to approach the pain at.
There's a point where I think the person working at the hospital calls Teddy and says, "Your mom's in the cancer ward sneaking cigarettes in," or something like that. And he just yells, "My mom's the motherfucking bomb. Your mother's a whore," and it's just so fucking awesome. That song is so fucking great. Teddy is so alive with how pissed he is.
Right. And like, we never met the mother, but that reaction gives you kind of an indication of what she was like. That attitude that came from somewhere. So he's paying a homage to her in that kind of way, indirectly. And you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have, like, that's kind of what I mean. Like, you don't have to go out and explicitly say it. You can use different colors to paint that picture of what you're trying to communicate.
And I don't want to go too hard on the accentuation. Teddy's writing is beautiful. It is staggering for me, right? Like there's that cigarette song where he's talking about all the bad things that could happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Says one of the things he says is that all the lighters could get together and convince the matches to drown themselves. And you just sit there and it doesn't matter how many times you've heard it, you're just like, what? Like, it's so wild. there's so many of these things that happen in this album, and we we've been talking about runs, man. To me, that initial run is wild. It's wild.
You mean the beginning?
Yeah, those
Okay.
first 5 songs. That's the shit. Like, because you go from the bad news. The bad news, Kay. Do you remember the bad news?
Which track was that? Oh, track 3. Okay.
Let me read the chorus to the bad news. See if you remember it.
Okay.
Let that simmer, let that sink. I urinated in your sink. I met your neighbors in the street. I told them that you pee in sinks.
I vaguely remember this one, yes.
So he goes from all these incredibly personal songs about how things are fucked up and how, like I said, my friend's dead and I'm wearing his Timbs. And then song 3 is the most savage I fucked your girl song like ever. It ends with him being like, I took your family, my family. It's insane. And that slides right into the cigarettes song.
Right.
And then Meddling Kids, like based on like the kind of Scooby-Doo line, right? Which is a fun ass song. Might be the most fun song on the album. You go from the least fun song on the album to the most fun song on the album. It's beautiful. Like I love, and look at the credits. Look at the production credits. This is what we're going to talk about. So, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, produced by Tom DeLay Beats. 3, 5, and 10, Alexander Brown. So, 3, 4, 5, Bad News, songs about cigarettes, but it's about my dead mom too, and Meddling Kids, all in a row. Then you go into the Teddy, Tom DeLay Beats. So I love how that's organized because yes, he has multiple producers, but he's still giving them runs, if that makes sense.
He's still giving what?
Giving them runs of songs.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the first track is Side Effect Studios. So that's, the opener almost doesn't count. So like you said, 2, Tom DeLay Beats is 2. 3, 4, 5, Alexander Brown. 7, 8, 9, Tom DeLay Beats. And then 10, the closer, Alexander Brown.
Yep. Closed it with Alexander Brown.
Right.
To go back to the feeling of that 3, 4, 5, I love it. I love that. I think it's really well done. I think Dear Friends is a great end song. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have been preaching about this. How do you feel about Teddy Brown? Was there anything that stood out?
I think it was really, I mean, of the 3, this was probably my second favorite. And I think it really was because it was the humor a little bit compared to the first one. The humor was a little bit better. And I think, as I said, like, in life, there's going to be bad things that happen to us. Like, we're going to go through bad times, right? But in those bad times, there's going to be things that happen. There are going to be moments that are funny. You know what I mean? There's going to be moments that make us angry. And there's going to be, moments that kind of bring us like small reprieves of joy. And so you can have an ultra personal album where you're talking about a really bad time and still have sprinkles of other emotions and other things in it.
Right.
And I think that this album did a good job of that.
It's one of my favorite albums of the year because of the impact these songs have.
Mhm.
That they're, and it's not a long album, which is great, and the skits work for the world, right? A conversation with his manager
Yeah,
where they
I
got
thought
pissed
that
off
was.
because they said it sounded like Machine Gun Kelly, and he's like, I've never heard Machine Gun Kelly. There's also this kind of the very normal interlude, which is like the robot voice reading like an "I quit" note from someone who works with him, and it's really great. All that stuff really establishes the world. He tends to find hooks that really sum up what he's trying to say quite well.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about Paper Plates and Sodas, right?
Okay.
Where he's just like the whole basis of the song is like, I'm the guy who just brings paper plates and sodas. Like I can't handle much more than that, you know? So
You you know, and there's the personality. Like, there's a reason to go back to this album a time in the game. Like, let me ask you. You said the first time it didn't resonate with you. What resonated with you the second time, where you were like, aha, oh, I get it. I get it now.
um and it's strange. This is gonna be strange. Early in the album, it might be Vic. There's a Nino Brown reference.
Okay.
Uh you know, and like Nino said to his man, right? And that really struck me because my whole worry about this shit is well-to-do college kids, white kids discovering rap and trying to be like, this is my personal outlet, and it gets on my nerves. People from outside the culture, people not into this, not real tourists, right?
Mhm.
But I started on the second listen. I started hearing how fucking hip hop he is, right? How
Mhm.
dedicated he is to this. And that, so, and then once I believed in that, I was able to catch all these crazy lines, right?
Mm.
And the album just got weirder and weirder every time I heard it.
Mm. You
So,
let your guard down.
yeah. Once I let the guard down and I was hearing everything, I was like, oh shit. I'm being bombarded with
Mm.
jokes, anxiety, depression. What was it? Fucking great line on here where he says, I didn't stop making music, I just stopped giving you it. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so I do consider this a trauma album. Do you consider it a trauma album, or do you consider it closer to Mavi uh, and the Rumination?
No, I think Mavi, for me, to go back to what I was saying, I think Mavi is the album that, like, us outside of the message and outside the personal nature of the lyrics, is the one that I liked the best from a technical standpoint. For this album, it is trauma, but I think he's got such like a engaging personality that
Yep.
it doesn't feel conversational. That's not the right word, but the reason to go back to it would be because of his personality.
I'm glad you brought personality into this because I think what will happen is people will be like on Twitter or something arguing about MCs, and they'll be like, "That guy's got no personality," but this guy, he's killing it. He's got great personality. You don't know any of these people, right?
Right,
It's
right.
not. You don't know any of these fucking people. Don't just say that this person you don't know doesn't have any personality. That's fucked up. Look, art is about showcasing your personality,
Yes.
about becoming good at showcasing your personality.
Mm-hmm.
and all the interesting elements of your personality. And Teddy with this album really does. He really starts to nail the sweet spots of the humor, outright jokes, outright sarcasm, anxiety.
Yes.
Do you remember how this album ends?
No.
The last thing said on this album is Teddy laughing about like a butterfly that's been on him as he's been rapping. Him like making fun of that situation.
You see, and that's what I would say, like the personality, like, you know, at the beginning of the show, you talked about your friends reading.
Yep.
Like, why would your friends want to read your poetry? Or
Right.
not your poetry, your work.
Yep.
And so, you know, I think what it is, like when you're talking about dark, you know, like really dark traumatic stuff that happened to you, and I'm like a listener or something, what's going to get me to come back is hearing you describe it.
Right.
Not necessarily the actual event, but hearing your personality interpret, like the inner conflict of your personality working through what you're experiencing.
Right. So as a consumer, to go back to the consumer level, right?
Yeah.
As a consumer, Teddy Brown has a place in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a frustrating day, it's Teddy Brown time.
Yeah.
Right?
That should be a shirt. Teddy Brown time.
When things are agitating, people are getting on your nerves, people are fucking with you for no reason. Oh man. You let that simmer, let that sink, right? Like it makes sense. It fits. Mavi, you can see that there's plenty of times where you would be wanting this kind of music, right? Where it's, you know, you're alone, it's a fairly nice day, you got a glass of something,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it on, and you start thinking, you start getting lost in your thoughts. That's it has a place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, and that's not saying that they designed it for that place. I believe a lot of times that great albums make a place for themselves, but
Right.
But sometimes they are crafted with a specific place in mind.
Right.
Scylla and Andrew, they had a specific place in mind for that album.
Mm-hmm.
They got there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is valuable when you're making an ultra personal album. After when you're in the process of it, you've got a bunch of songs done. So sit back, listen to them, and think, I'm a consumer. What am I doing with this?
Right.
Right? Is this what is this gonna do for me? Right?
Right.
Just to help you organize your thoughts.
Yeah.
Not to shoot down any of the good ideas you have. You know, keep creating, keep rolling. But think about, what does this do for the people listening to it?
Right. I mean, and if you want your music to be a confessional, like create it and don't release it. Like don't release it or just put it out there and don't promote it. And whoever gets it, whatever. Like you know, I think of like message in a bottle type of thing. That's fine. But if you want your album to, it goes back to your intention. If you want it to resonate with people, you've got to think about their experience listening to it while you make it. And being able to do that and yet still be pure and quote unquote true to your vision is the balance of like a great artist. That's what they're able to do.
I'm with you. So I don't have any more on the topic. Hey, this has been great. It's been great
Yeah.
to just chop it up. We've had so many guests. We've been loaded. So yeah, it's been nice.
Absolutely.
So recommendation corner, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
So I'm gonna stay away from Bandcamp recommendations because I've got a full Bandcamp days tomorrow. I've got a full rollout of Bandcamp recommendations coming for the Patreon.
Okay.
Let's go streaming. Smino Love for Rent. I mentioned it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Groovy as shit. Groovy as shit. That song with Doechii is beautiful. It's wonderful. Yeah, Smino's a lot of fucking fun to listen to.
Absolutely.
The other one is Chez Noir came back out.
Oh wow.
It are 9 songs, and it's called The Last Remnants. It has Ransom. It has Benny the Butcher, 38 Special, of course, always El Camino. Yeah, Jinx 716. So it's really fucking good. Chez Noir is really fucking good.
We know that, yeah.
Yeah.
Last Remnants. Okay.
Yep.
And this came out the 26th.
Yeah. I'm on it.
What's that? There's just so much good music how did you find out about it?
Oh, I think shout out to Ruben. Check the Rhyme One on Twitter. He puts out a bunch of releases, I don't know if it was on the Dylan Green Cinema Sci weekly update, but it was.
It's so important nowadays to have a good musical network.
Oh God!
Particularly ever since 2021. I mean, if you don't have a good musical network, you're going to miss a lot of great things.
Yeah, and that's what people are saying when they're like, I don't really follow music anymore. They just don't have a network of people to put them on, right? They've aged out of it. Everybody in their network doesn't do that anymore, so they don't do that anymore. But
and it's hard because I feel like back in the day, like good music would come to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you would either come to you, or you would cross paths with it in some way. But nowadays, like there's so many different options. Like if you're not looking for it, or there's not someone actively bringing it to your doorstep, you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. So what do you got for recommendations? What are you into?
So I've been listening to, it's funny because I was on social media a couple of days ago, and there was a post that had like a song in it that it was like an instrumental that I really dug. So I actually, like, it was a whole process. Like I had to record it on my phone, transferred it to my iPad, played it on my iPad while at the same time Shazamming it with my phone. And I came across it. So it's by an artist. It's an instrumental mixtape by an artist named E. Jones, E. Jones. And he has a whole bunch of instrumental mixtapes. And the one that I was listening to was Dead Stock, DEAD Stock, Volume 2. And he has a whole Dead Stock series, 1 through 4. But the one I was listening to was Volume 2. And it's just a really great instrumental album. So that would be, I actually have a recommendation this week. So that would be my recommendation for the week, would be Dead Stock Volume 2, E. Jones.
That's awesome. That is great. It's great when a song takes you over like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man. I've been doing a lot of good reading, getting a lot of comic books in. and there's a really cool series by Rachel Smythe called Lore Olympus,
Okay.
where she kind of turns the gods of Mount Olympus into this kind of catty relationship based place, right? And makes it modern and makes it funny and interesting. And I guess it exists within that young adult comics world, but I think it's just really well done, really beautifully illustrated. I've just been getting into that. So
All right.
I'm rocking it. And yeah. Anything else you want to recommend for the people?
The new season of White Lotus started on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to that. TV wise, Atlanta on FX is starting to wrap up its series. I thought this because so the way they divided season 4 into 2 parts, and I think the second part of season 4 has been really strong.
I've really loved all of season 4. I love it. I've loved every bit of it. I think it's a beautiful. If this is it, this is a beautiful finale.
Yeah,
this is a show with no fat.
No,
just all 4 years were just really fucking good.
Very good. Yeah. I'm glad that they're going out on their own terms, and I'm glad that it's launched. I mean, it's launched the careers of an arguably four star artists, actors.
I mean, and the great thing is that Donald Glover was able to mastermind one of the most impressive shows from like a plot standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
While helping other people become stars within their profession, while taking it up notches as an actor himself.
Mm-hmm.
That camping trip episode is one of the best Donald Glover pieces of work you'll ever see in terms of his acting.
Phenomenal. Absolutely.
And to do that while being the showrunner is just that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like that's a very seriously important artist. And I think it's I hope it's not something we're taking for granted.
I think it's going to be one of those things where you don't appreciate the full impact until a couple years later. Like there's a delay. Like we know Atlanta is good, but I think in a couple of years we'll recognize how good it actually was.
Right. I hope people are processing like how important and how great this stuff is and has been. It's everybody, thank you. New patrons, killing it. Really enjoying it. People reaching out to me for cool stuff. It's unbelievable. And we got to see Pusha T. Had a ball doing that. Yeah. I mean, it's been good. Things have, we've been doing this. This shit is working out. Enjoy it. So I appreciate you for staying along, Kay. And
absolutely. I appreciate you too, Beth.
Appreciate everybody except Kawhi.
Tomorrow.